Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF World Champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 246 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Coastman, and I am joined by... He's back, the former heavyweight world title challenger, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you, my man?
All good, my friend. Always good when speaking to you. That is the absolute truth. Getting on to, we're going to dive straight into the review part of the show. We're going to start here with a card that took place on, last Thursday. Last Thursday. The show was topped by Jason Maloney. Obviously, a bit of a strange situation. Him and his brother, I think, were the only boxers in the world that were granted permission to get on a flight from one country to the other to actually have a fight there. So, obviously, on the Tuesday, friend of the show, Andrew Maloney, the twin brother of Jason Maloney, two Australian identical twins. Andrew Maloney lost, obviously, his world title on the Tuesday, but we reviewed that last week. And on the Thursday, just 2 days later, just 48 hours later in the same venue, Jason Maloney, who I think is a few minutes older than Andrew, he moved to 21-1. He made his opponent retire on his stool after 7 rounds. His opponent, Leonardo Baez, now 18-3. A good win there for Jason Maloney. Obviously, I just went into it a little bit there. You know, there's obviously a lot of mental, I suppose, pressure, and everything that went on outside the ring. Him seeing his brother lose, he was actually there because, again, this whole bubble setup that they've got, he was in there with his brother, so he's been cleared to fight. He's corona free, so is his brother. So they actually allowed him to stand ringside, because he was pretty much part of the corner, if you like. He was sat there ringside, or standing there ringside with his face mask. And tough scenes, really. That was it, though. Well, there's one fight to mention on the undercard. Abraham Nova, now 19-0, a win there against Avery Sparrow, who's now 10-2. Some people not too pleased with the wide scorecards. I've got to be honest, I didn't actually see that fight there. I should also mention that on the undercard, again, there was a guy. It's not a big fight, but a guy called Raymond Yanong, who got a win. He's now 11-5 with a draw. A split decision win for him over 6 rounds against a guy called Clay Burns, who's 9-8 now with 2 draws. Again, very small fight on the undercard, but I wanted to bring this guy up because he's got a very cool nickname, Eddie, and we like a cool nickname. So his name is Clay Burns, but his nickname that he's put just before the Burns, you may guess, he's Clay Third Degree Burns. So creative, man.
Very creative. I was going to know what I was going to say. If you're a fan of The Simpsons, are you
Burns? Yeah.
If Clay Mister or Montgomery Burns,
True.
Would have been good.
True. Yeah, absolutely. What else do we have? We have a card that took place on the weekend in Mexico. Miguel Berchelt, 38-1 now. He took on Elazar Valenzuela, who's now 21-14 with 4 draws. It was a 6-round TKO there for Berchelt. It's a very strange situation again because the fight took place in Mexico City, but in Mexico City there's like kind of some sort of soft ban on boxing, so the commission didn't turn up. So everything, apparently, I'm not 100% sure, but everything that took place on BoxRec and places like that has gone down officially as a no contest, despite what happened. So, not quite sure if that situation is going to get cleared up, but Mexico City is a place where they don't have the commission ready for fights right now. Obviously, in other parts of Mexico, that's not the case. That's why Carlos Molina, friend of the show, has been able to promote his own shows and fight on them in other parts of Mexico. Moving out now to the White Sands Treatment Center in Plant City, Florida, USA. One fight to mention over here, return to the ring for Ryan Martin, who's now 23-1. He hadn't boxed since losing in the World Boxing Super Series to Josh Taylor. He returned with a good win. His opponent, Carlos Velasquez, retired on his store after 6 rounds. He had a losing record though. Velasquez, 27-37 now with 2 draws. Very easy comeback there for Ryan Martin. And of course, almost forgot the card that took place this Tuesday, just 2 days ago. Once again, back at the bubble in the MGM Grand Las Vegas. Couple fights to mention, really. Josu Vargas moved to 17-1, a unanimous decision for him against Salvador Bresino, who's now 17-6. And topping the bill, it was quite a good fight actually. Alex Salcedo moved to 30 wins. He's got that 1 loss, of course. It was a unanimous decision win for him over 10 rounds against Sonny Fredrickson, who's now 21-3. I'm just going to dive into the preview part as well. There's one fight to mention that's taking place later today, Thursday, 2nd of July. Jose Pedraza tops the bill, back at the bubble in the MGM Grand. 26-3, the former world champion Pedraza. He takes on Mikel Lespierre, who's 22-1 with a draw. That's over 10 rounds. Lespierre, that loss came to Maurice Hooker when he moved up in weight from 140 to 147. I think it was Maurice Hooker's first fight, if I'm not mistaken, at 147. I could have that horribly wrong. It might have been a world title defense actually at 140 before he lost to Ramirez. Could be wrong, but anyway, that's where his loss came from. It was one of the worst fights in terms of action that I've seen in recent years. Hopefully it's going to be a decent fight, but we'd take anything at the minute I should say. Also on the undercard we get to see Albert Bell. He returns, the fighter from Toledo, Ohio, 16-0. He takes on Mark Bernaldez, who's 20-3. That's over 10 there. And also the 2016 Olympic gold medalist Robisi Ramirez, the Cuban, 3-1 after losing his debut, of course. He takes on Adan Gonzalez, who's 5-2. Something tells me that could have been the guy that he lost to on his debut. Let me just double check that. Could have it horribly wrong. No, I don't. I've got it right. So yeah, he's trying to avenge that loss that he suffered on his debut, a split decision loss over 4 rounds when he was down in the first round. So all the best to Robisi Ramirez. There is also a card next Tuesday, of course. I think the undercard's still being finalised. It's back at the MGM Grand again. Over there we have Jose Zepeda, 31-2. He's in a 10-rounder against Kendo Castaneda, who's 17-1, and Andy Vences, 23-1 with a draw, takes on Luis Vargas, who's 20-2 over 10. That is all the reviewing and the previewing. I am just going to fly through the news segment real quick, Eddie. If there's anything you want to jump in and say, you're more than welcome to during that. And then, of course, we'll bring in your story time segment. So last Friday it was announced that Matchroom are going to be coming back with boxing shows. They'll start from August the 1st in Eddie Hearn's, his back garden, so to speak, at the Matchroom headquarters. So August the 1st we get to see Sam Eggington take on Ted Cheeseman. former world title challenger James Tennyson, 26-3. Obviously, he got stopped by Tevin Farmer. He's back here in a 12-rounder against Gavin Gwynn for the vacant British lightweight title. Also on the bill, Jordan Gill against Reece Bellotti. That could be quite interesting over 12 rounds. Fabio Wardley, the undefeated heavyweight, 8-0. He takes on Simon Valili. That one's for the vacant English heavyweight title. And Dalton Smith, 5-0, takes on Nathan Bennett. So that's a very, very good card to come back with there. Like I say, the date for that, Saturday, August the 1st. Then I think we're still waiting on dates to be confirmed for it, if I'm not mistaken, but we will get to see at some point Terry Harper defend her WBC and IBO Super Featherweight world titles against Natasha Jonas. There is a date for that. It's going to be August the 7th. It's a Friday. Also on that card, we get to see Chris Billum-Smith take on the undefeated Nathan Forley, who is 14-0. Anthony Fowler gets another fight under his belt. He takes on Adam Harper. And there's a couple other fights again on that one there. And the third and final show, this one I think takes place, I guess it's the week after that, 14th of August, so another Friday show. Felix Cash puts his Commonwealth middleweight title on the line against Jason Wellborn. Zelfa Barrett takes on Ireland's undefeated Eric Donovan, who's 12-0 with 7 KOs. I think he was a very good amateur, Donovan. Kieran Conway takes on Navid Mansouri, and I think we see Shannon Courtenay, 5-0 with 2 KOs, take on Rachel Ball, 5-1. Also on the bill, John Doherty, no opponent just yet for him, but that's the 3 cards that they've brought back. There is talks of a 22nd of August card as well, which will be on Sky Sports box office. Should the undercard come together, that's going to be Dillian White defending his WBC interim heavyweight world title against Alexander Povetkin, a man that Eddie knows very well. Also on the undercard, Katie Taylor will be defending her world titles, her undisputed world titles, and Martin Bakole, the heavyweight that suffered a loss, his sole loss to Michael Hunter, he returns to the ring against Sergei Kuzmin, another guy that suffered his sole loss to Michael Hunter. So the guy that beat them both, I'm sure will be sitting back watching that one. Also a brilliant fight on the card again. Luther Clay takes on Chris Congo. That's going to be cracking there. And yeah, in other news, Michael Hunter has been released by Matchroom Sports. He's no longer under contract. I think they had a period in which they were supposed to renew it, if they wanted to renew it, after the Povetkin draw, and they chose not to, if I'm not mistaken. It's news that's broke this week. I think it was a couple of days ago, something like that. Michael did an interview with a couple of outlets. I've known about it for a couple of weeks. The funny thing is, I'll tell you a story, Eddie. Mike told me, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. And he said, yeah, man, we've got to do an interview. I want you to be the guy that I do that interview with, to break the silence and talk about it and all that. And then he rang me today saying, oh, man, I can't believe it. I totally forgot. I did this interview with this other guy. So he's not in my good books right now, Michael Hunter. He forgot about me temporarily, but yeah, it's all good. I'm sure we'll get him on at some point to discuss it. But yeah, I think he's quite happy. I think he kind of felt like he wasn't getting the fights he wanted under Eddie Hearn, and they were trying to throw him tough fights that were like high risk, low reward fights, just repeatedly, in my opinion.
You know what that's like.
Yeah. There is another fight card to mention. Matchroom USA makes a return on August the 15th. That's a Saturday. We get to see Julio Cesar Martinez defend his WBC World Flyweight title against McWilliams Arroyo. We get to see Cecilia Brackhouse defend her undisputed welterweight championship against Jessica McCaskill. Also, there's a debut from Mark Castro, very good amateur. A lot of people quite hyped up to see him. We have Nikita Ababi on that card as well, and a couple of others. I think Giasov's on it as well. So some good fights there. Oh yeah, one last one. back on British TV. It's going to be on Channel 5. We get to see Shakan Pitters take on Chad Sugden, a fight that's been put off a couple times now. That one, of course, for the British light heavyweight title. I am quite excited to see that one. Did I say the date? The date for that is... Oh gosh, the date for that, 22nd of August. So August is going to be quite a busy month, it looks like. But yeah, that's all the news there this week. Sorry, Eddie, if it dragged out a little bit there. It's now time for your story time. I'm sure we're going to pick up, from where we left off, and we're going to keep it bite-sized. We're not going to go on for too long this week, of course, because again, we've got another in-depth interview coming. The interview's about an hour long, something like that, with the former IBF Super-Featherweight world champion, and not going to say his name, but you probably know if you're already listening, but he's the only man to have put Floyd Mayweather down, so that should be interesting. But before we get into that, Eddie, take it away, my friend. Lockdown Knockdown, let's go.
All right. We last talked about the Ruckman camp and how I went from when I fought Ross Purity in May, which was a Tuesday night fight, all the way till Rockman's camp, which was I believe in July, the whole month of July. So basically from May to July, I've been in camp. Because basically, I told you I watched the film of my fight, and I didn't like how it looked, and so I had to turn it on. Went to camp there. After that camp there, I come back home, and I got another call. We always get calls, especially when it comes to going to camps and helping people train. But it was from Marshall Kaufman. Marshall, though. You know of Marshall Kaufman, don't you?
Promotions.
Right. Well, they called because Travis had a fight coming up, and I think he was just turning pro, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I think that was the case. He was just getting ready to turn pro.
Yeah, because I thought he was a little bit before your time. Because he was a little bit, I suppose. Because as you say, he's just turning pro. You think at this point, but yeah, he's been on the show a few times. I like him. He's a nice guy, Travis.
Yeah, he is. He's really cool. He's always been real cool, and I worked with him several times. Different times in my career, and this was, I think, the first time I worked with him. And of course, there was a bunch of other guys up there. I can't even remember who all the guys were. There was a bunch of different weights, and I remember working with guys who were smaller and heavier. But I remember working with him, and at this point, I had been training for almost 5 months. At that point, and when I say I was sharp as a tack. Like it was like a blade, like a ninja blade or something. Every time I threw a shot, it was landing. It really was that serious. But I didn't feel strong, but I felt good. Like I felt athletic. I felt like I can move. I can do everything I needed to do. My weight was all the way down, sometimes to 200 pounds and even a little below. So I remember I went up there and I sparred with him, and I just, and the sparring was good. He was tough. He's actually a pretty good boxer, pretty smart, with boxing as well. But he just wasn't able to keep up with what I was able to do, boxing wise and speed. But it was still good work. It turned out well for him. It actually turned out really well for me. But it was just, I remember him saying, "Man, he's throwing shots and hitting, but I don't really feel nothing." And I'm sitting there like, I'm trying here. You know what I'm saying? Like in my mind, I'm like, man, I'm thinking I'm putting some leather together. But I guess it wasn't bothering him. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, it's like I'm starting to think like either there's something wrong or, because I feel good. But it was in the summertime. It was like the heart of summer, coming toward the end of the summer, in August. And that's like one of the hottest months of the year. So I remember being in that camp. And we were only really up there for about 2 weeks. I had just come from camp, and my fight was like 3 weeks away from then, so I was only up there for about 2 weeks. And actually, we traveled back and forth. We would stay there for like the bulk of the week, and then go back on weekends and stuff like that. But I remember because Reading, PA is about, from when I was in Philly, maybe about an hour from us. So I would go up and come back. But anyway, I remember like starting to feel like the heat of the summer. You know how it is when you're like out and you're walking. Like I even felt some of that today when I was out shooting, and it's you just start to feel a little weak, but not like too weak. Like I felt good still, but it's a little hot and uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So it's a wonder why some of the steam was coming off my shots. Not to mention I had those basically 5 months of hardcore training and a camp and another camp in between. You know, so I do that work and I get through it. And like I said, I felt pretty good. I was really sharp and I was doing a lot of work. And we end up obviously getting ready. And I remember I think we were up there for about 2 weeks. So I think I had about a week and a half or so before my fight with Robert Hawkins at the Blue Horizon, which was to be on September 9th. And I remember I got back from the camp with Travis and just training. And I remember going in there knowing that the guy I'm going to fight, this Robert Hawkins, who had just beat, for one of his biggest wins, at least up to that point, a guy by the name of John Poor. Now, I don't think you know this guy, Joe, but there was a lot of hype behind this guy because he was a big, I'm not going to try to make this a racial thing, but he was a big white heavyweight from the area, and he had all knockouts, I think, up to that point. But he was so green. I mean, super green. I was like, if anybody who knew anything was able to get in there with the guy, it would have exposed him. So Robert Hawkins got in there and got that opportunity, and he exposed it. And I really loved John. John was a great guy, and I sparred with him many times, but he was just so green, and he got to the sport so late that he couldn't really, you know what I mean? He couldn't make up the time. You understand what I'm saying? And so Robert Hawkins beat him, so that was his way of getting in. There was like a vacant title they had come up with, that IBU title that I told you about, Joey, and also the PA state title, because that's where he got it from. So they made this fight between me and Robert Hawkins for all of that. So it's for all the marbles up to this point. You know what I mean? And like I said, I went through all that stuff in camp, and I'm trying to be, 1,000,000% sharp and ready to go because, I'm not afraid of the guy or anything like that, but I am worried. You know what I mean? You always go into fights and you have a little bit of nervousness, but this is like, I just watched this guy, even though I know how green this guy is and how he's not really up to snuff. But I still watch Robert Hawkins not only beat him, but stop him. And I'm like, man, he probably can punch. He's probably tough. Like I've seen him in there and he fought guys like Sam Peter and stuff. And I'm like, man, I don't even know if he fought Sam Peter before me. I can't remember. But I just remember seeing him in there with different guys and looking at his record on BoxRec and kind of like, you're getting a little worried and, a little antsy. So every day I go into the gym. I would go into the gym and I swear I would get in there and do about 10 to 12 rounds of floor work, which means I would get into the ring and do like movement drills, shadow boxing and things like that for literally. And I would be in constant motion for we're talking almost like 10 to 12 rounds a day. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to the gym 6 days a week at that point. And even though it was the last 2 weeks and we're not doing a lot of sparring or anything like that, the work is in, I'm still doing this stuff. You know what I mean? Just because I'm thinking I got to be able to move. I got to be sharp. This guy's tough. This guy's going to be good. So, I say all that to we get all the way up to the fight. They had a fight, kind of, you're nervous, you normal feelings, doing butterfly thing. And I think my brother had fought on the undercard. So and this is crazy because he had a fight on the undercard where he got dropped in, I think, the first round. He got dropped, and it was a bad one too. Like he's never been down before up to this point. And the guy, I think he had like about, I don't know how many fights, maybe 5 or 6 fights up to this point, maybe even a little more. And the guy dropped him bad. So I'm in the corner. I'm not even in the corner. I'm in the audience watching, and I'm like, oh gosh, what's going on? What the hell? Because at this point, it's early in his career. He's dominating everybody just like you would expect. But he got caught in a situation with his hands down on the ropes and got caught. Boom, goes down. So I'm like, oh shit, man, this is not a good day so far. You know what I mean? I'm already worried. I'm already thinking about my fight. Then I'm watching this guy, and I have nothing that I could do. I'm powerless to help. But then he gets back up, finishes the round strong, and he's back. Ends up literally the next round stopping the guy, and he didn't have a lot of knockouts up to that point, but he showed a great deal of heart, which kind of then got me back into it and got me kind of excited again about the fight. And I remember jumping all up and running out to the ring and all that right before my fight. But then I had to kind of calm down because you're still getting in there yourself and you still got to focus, and you can't just be all hopped up with all that energy and not have go with the game plan that you've been working on for 5 months up to this point. You know what I mean? So I had to go back in, settle myself down and relax. And, when he came back in all, celebrating everything, I was, hugged him and everything and was just happy for him. But then, like I said, I got myself back centered and realized what I had to do. And of course the nerves start to come back again. So then they called me. I'm always on my way to the ring. And I think he was already out there because, I'm the house fighter at this point, which is, trust me, not often in my career that I've been that. But at the Blue Horizon, for whatever, obviously I was there. But so I go to we get to the ring. And like I said, as you get closer, you get to the ring. It's like Mike Tyson said, the closer you get to the ring, the more you feel good and comfortable. It's like another day in the office, so to speak. And I remember getting in the ring and starting to feel good. They go through the introductions, and I felt okay. I didn't feel weak or tired or anything. I felt really actually pretty good. And I remember the first round I got out there with the guy, and like I said, nervous energy, moving around real fast and just, sharp. And I remember he threw a jab, and it obviously was too slow for me. And I remember countering the jab with the sharpest right hand ever. And instantly I remember seeing a black mark just appear, like a big swelling appear right, I think, under his eye. Like immediately, like not like you hit him and then, through the course of the round, you see it start to swell. No, boom, instantly. It was like a dive. I was like, damn. I was like, oh yeah, I feel good today. So the rest of the round, just dominating them easily, picking them off, counter, Floyd Mayweather type stuff, pop shotting them all like crazy. And he goes, we go back to the corner, easily won that round. Second round, more of the same, just dominating. And after the fight was over, and I'm going to kind of fast forward to after the fight was over, I think the first 2, 3, or 4 rounds, the guy had literally went back to his corner because we knew his trainer, went back to his corner and tried to quit for the first 4 rounds. And his trainer was like, I'm not going to throw the towel in. I'm not going to let you quit. No, you're getting out there and you're going to fight. If he would have done that, obviously that would have been great for me, because what happened is, as sharp as I was in the beginning of the fight, now we got to look back at the training camp I had, right? All those trainings, all those, the camp with Rockman and me not liking how I looked all the way back when I fought Ross Purity, all the way up to now in September from May fighting. I have never stopped training hard. And I'm not talking about just regular training or throwing some punches on the back. No, I never relaxed at all. It was constant hard work, 6 days a week for 5 months almost. So as the fight was going on, I still felt good. And I remember, 5, 6, and I remember I dropped him twice, if I'm not mistaken, in the fight. I can't remember for sure. It might have been once. I'm not sure, but I know I dropped him with a body shot once or twice, or I can't really remember. And I knew I had the fight basically under control, but I still felt, the things were a little uneasy because I started to feel a little weird. You know what I mean? Going into the 6th, then the 7th, and then the 8th round, which was my last. Well, I'll say the 9th was probably my last decent round, where it was the 8th, because 9 through 12 was like, it's hard even to remember. You know what I mean? Like I think I still took round 9, but I remember, I think it was 10, 11, and 12. I barely threw any punches. I could barely lift my arms. My body was so overtrained. Like I had no energy. I remember in the last round of the fight, not 100% not being able to pick my hands up it was a good thing that when I found out that he really wasn't a puncher, he hit me clean in the head a couple of times. And I was like, man, I wish I had some damn energy, but I couldn't lift my arms. I honestly, Joey, my arms were literally at my waist and I could not do anything with them. I tried to pick them up to defend. I would move my head periodically, but I couldn't do anything. You know what I mean? And the last 3 rounds, obviously, he took them because I remember, and in the last round, I think I threw 3 punches. I only was able to throw 3 punches. So we get to the scorecard, and I think I won. And it was actually decent. The card was actually not terrible. I think I won. I think it was 8-4. You know what I mean? I think that was the card that they gave. I mean, the score that they gave me. A couple of them was like, there was like one that was 9-3 and the other two were 8-4. But I mean, I felt so bad at the end that I honestly felt like I lost the fight. You know what I mean? And I remember they had, once they announced the decision, they had those two belts. And I remember there was a picture in the blue. Now it's closed down. There was a picture in the blue with me and those two belts on my shoulder and around my, both my shoulders. I could barely hold them up. And they're not that heavy, those belts. I mean, one of the belts was fairly heavy, but it wasn't like the big time belts that are, it could be really heavy. And I could barely hold them up. If you look at my face in that picture, it looked like I was just like about to pass out. You know what I mean? I had no energy left. So after that fight's over, and I remember not being too happy about it, but still yet I had the belts with me. So one of the belts anyway. And I remember ending up sleeping with it. You know what I mean? It was my first time. And then Rob, my manager at the time, brought me a picture, actually a BoxRec screenshot. We're going to call it a screenshot or a printout. Back then, there wasn't no screenshot. But anyway, of me being ranked number 15 in the IBF. So I was like, oh man. So I got the belt. I put that on the wall. Everything was great. And at that point, I'm checking my BoxRec constantly. You know what I mean? Just to see if there's any movement. You know what I mean? You know how it is when you're coming up. But I still, even after that fight, even though things went well, I got the decision, I still had to go back and really rethink my mental, when it came to like, how do I prepare for fights? Because I get that obviously you get that, my body didn't look great in the fight with Ross Purity, but it's not always about that. And it's more important that you go into the fight with everything you need, your skills, your energy, your strength, all of that, no matter what your body looks like. Now, granted, you hope that the body beautiful thing comes with hard work and that everything you do, you'll get that. But sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And certain people's body types are a little bit more difficult, and maybe you're not quite schooled on how to eat. And that was my issue. So I tried to overdo it, and my result was I could have put myself in position to lose. So to anyone who's listening, if you don't like something that maybe you think that you needed to correct, whether it's, especially with your physique, think about how important it is to feel good on the night of the fight, not look good. You know what I mean? I understand looking good is important, but feeling good is much better and much more important. So, but anyway, we're going to go quickly through. I fought, the next fight I had was with Andrew Greeley, right, on February 10th. That fight, it wasn't really much. I think it was a 10-round decision, right? Right.
Yeah. No,
Joe.
8-round decision.
It was an 8-round decision. Now, I remember there's a picture of me actually fighting Andrew Greeley and him throwing a punch. It looks like we're not even in the same. It looks like the picture is kind of like, I don't know how you say what is super like kind of what do they call that? It's like you put. Yeah, I was gonna say something like that. Not necessarily superimposed where it's one person, some in place. No, I can't really think of what the word is. But anyway, it looks like we don't belong in the picture because he threw a shot and he missed crazy. But if it looks like, you remember the movie The Matrix? When the guys, it looks like somebody took a still picture of that. Like I swear to God, there's a picture of that, and it was Andrew Greeley throwing a left hook or something and missed kind of badly, but he missed because who the hell would think that I bent back, my back all the way almost like I'm touching the ground, it seemed like. If you see that picture, you'd be like, what the hell were you doing? That is so wrong. And my hands weren't even up. And I remember getting hit in that fight with a shot. It didn't hurt me, but it was like, oh shit, I got caught. Like, could you imagine me getting dropped by this guy? And I remember thinking that while I'm in the ring. Yeah, but anyway.
I just want to interrupt real quick because you got 3 judges that scored it. You pitched a shutout. On one card, you were 80-72, but on the 2 other cards, you were 80-71. Did you drop him?
Yeah, I dropped.
On the same card, Steve got he got cut in the first round, and it was a no contest.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah. That was. I remember I had. I remember that. That was crazy.
Joey Abel was on the undercard then, the future opponent of Tyson Fury. Yeah.
Minnesota Ice. I remember, and you know what? I think I sparred with him. before that. Yeah, I think I sparred with Joey Abel before that Greeley fight. Funny to mention, I sparred with him, and somebody told me like, oh, yeah, he's a pretty good puncher and he's not bad. And I remember getting in the ring kind of like, a little. And I'm not an arrogant guy, but all fighters had that, that air about them every now and again, especially with the success I was having. I'm like, man, whatever. And he was a southpaw, so I got in there. I remember I did something and I left my head there just thinking, oh, he ain't going to. He hit me with a hard straight left hand, boom, straight down the pipe, boom. I was like, motherfucker. I remember, and it's like when your mouthpiece start moving around, like it's not, you was hit. And it wasn't that it hurt me, but it hit me, and I remember hitting my teeth, and I'm like, motherfucker. And I tried to dust him off after that, but it was a good work. It was the first time I worked with him, so I didn't really know what to expect. But man, he caught me with that shot, and that woke me up. Definitely woke me up and turned that sparring into like we really went at it in there.
Yeah, he's still going now as well, Joey Abel. Yeah,
still fighting. Yeah, well, it is what it is. But anyway, so I get past the Greeley fight and starting to be a little smarter with the training. I kind of, you know what I mean. But anyway, I had I looked back on that. I remember the whole thing with the Robert Hawkins and then getting through the Greeley fight. I think I was a little bit in a better place, mentally as far as what to expect from my body or what to expect, body style and what I look like or whatever. And that stopped really being the most important part. And I started to more think about how I felt. You know what I'm saying? So then I'm training and, we're doing our normal thing is we never really took any time off, really. Like after fights, we would be right back in the gym. And I remember my manager calling my dad and saying, hey, we got this fight at the Blue, like always up to that point. And it's with this guy, and he said the name, and he said Ed Mahone. I'm like, Ed Mahone? I didn't really remember hearing of this guy. So, we looked him up, and he's like, yeah, he says he's a puncher, but he going to tear him apart. That's what, the manager said. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go look. And I don't want nobody else to think I'm nervous. And, my dad told me, yeah, he said he got all knockouts, but he's slow. And Eddie, you're going to be – and that's my dad telling me, you'll be fine with him. We're just going to make sure, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, all right. In my mind, I'm thinking, this motherfucker got all the knockouts. How many losses do he got? That's the only thing I'm concerned about, like how many losses and how are the losses? How many times he been knocked out? And what can I do to make sure that I feel like I'm going to be okay in there? You know what I mean? So I go check his box rec, look at some of the guys he fought. And obviously, some of his competition is good up to that point, but not really can't say good. Just pedestrian competition, let's say at best. But he knocked out everybody he beat. So obviously he's a puncher. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking, damn, this dude's, man, I guess I can't let him hit me. You know what I mean? All of these things going through my mind. So here comes those Robert Hawkins thoughts again. Like, man, I got to get back in the gym and be moving around for 10, 12 rounds. And then, but you got to settle down and relax and realize you just got to be as sharp as you need to be on the night. Try to feel good as you possibly can. But I remember just that whole time and just like thinking about him, looking at his record and, just trying to pick him apart and see what wasn't. I was trying to find video of him. I don't think I was able to find much video of him or any video of him. And then, so it was annoying me. It was like bothering me. And I'm like, man, I just hope I don't get caught with this guy. You know what I mean? I should be able to beat him. I should be better than him. But if he hits me? What if he catches me? I'm a small guy. Like I can't take these doubts that go in your head, throughout the time in camp. So after the camp's over and the fight's coming up, I think it was on a Friday. We go to, we get to the arena. And man, I'm probably in that fight. I was probably as nervous as I've ever been in a fight, before a fight. And I'm sitting there like, you know what I mean, taking deep breaths and just, like looking at my brother and he looking at, oh man, it's gonna be cool. Trying to reassure me, yeah, man, these dudes ain't got nothing at this stage. Ain't got nothing for you. Ain't nobody got nothing for you. All that stuff, trying to make me feel good and. Shit ain't working. You know what I mean? I'm still nervous. Like if he fucking land one of them big bombs, it's good night for me and all that shit, right? So and even though I've been in camps with like Rockmon and I've been in all of these different places and worked with Monty Barrett and all that, and it's like and been in there with the Rhino and
Michael Mora.
all of these guys, man, and even more probably up to that point. Darrell Wilson, who actually knocked out Shannon. I hate to bring that up, but I was in the ring with him a lot. Terrence Lewis, Gerald Nobles, several guys from Philly, Derek Bryant, all of these dudes at that one time where it was a real dangerous place to be in Philly for heavyweights. But I had done great work with all of them. But I'm still, man, this guy, for some reason, we got the gloves on, but I'm nervous, man. What am I going to do? So, just like always, as you get closer to the ring, in the ring walk, you start feeling a little more confident. But I still was really thinking and really worried about this guy hitting me. You know what I'm saying? So, after they announce us, and then he does this fucking thing with his when they announce him, and he stomps real hard, like makes the ring shake, and this guy's he's overweight. He's not what his weight should be, but he was like probably 260 or 250 pounds. You probably can look it up on BoxHard. And he make that stomp, and I'm like, fucking this fucking guy, man. He better not hit me with some crazy shit and get me out of here. I'm like, still thinking this, even though I'm feeling better, I'm still worried about that. So the bell rings, and I mean, when I say, you talk about clean rounds, talking about swimming without getting wet, I don't think he touched me in the first round. Literally didn't touch me, like no clinches, didn't even put his glove out and touch my body. And I remember I beat him so badly. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad. And I was still kind of worried. Like, I still don't want this guy touching me, but I was all over the ring. I was like the Tasmanian devil. Like, I was there. I was hitting him combinations and everywhere, and it was like nervous energy, but then it started to become like concentrated energy. You know what I mean? And I just put it into his ass the whole night. Well, it was only 3 rounds. And I remember
pause.
Pause there. Pause hard on that.
Damn, Eddie.
I should have said that. I should have said put it on, not in. That was a mistake. Bad wording. Yeah. Horrible. But anyway, I don't want to take this away from the story. But anyway. Why did you gotta say pause? Even though,
because that's what you normally do, man.
I should have known better. I should have known better than say that. Ann was on here. Oh my god! But he'd have like paused. Like, what did you say? But anyway, so I remember after the first round, me giving this loud yell after I beat him, like almost to death. It felt like in the first round, and it was just like, yeah, I got him. You know what I mean? I got him. Still a little nervous about the power, but it was just unbelievable domination. Same thing in the second round, was even worse. And I remember in the third, we went 3. And I remember in the third round, me just walking up to him at the end and hit him with a hook right hand, very hard, real hard and sharp, hard and as sharp as I could throw it. And I remember him like stumbling back from my corner all the way to the other corner on the other side. You know what I mean? Back to his corner and literally hitting the turnbuckle. And at that point, I don't know if it was Steve Smoker that was doing the, I'm not sure. I can't remember who was the ref, but I remember him he stopped it after that. And then once again, I let out this crazy yell and was like, oh, like I just knocked out King Kong or something, because it was just so much of the energy and the worry of, all this time in camp and all this worry about how this guy punched and how good he must have been to have all knockouts, even though he had like 5 losses up to that point. And all I was thinking about was he was 21, I think, in 5 or 21 and 6 or something like that. I can't remember. And he had all knockouts. And I was like, man, this guy. And I got in the ring and I dominated him so bad, it just made me feel like everything was vindicated. Everything that I'd done all the way up to that point was worth it. You know what I'm saying? All the hard training, all the sparring sessions with all of those tough guys and, with the Clay Bays and all of these other guys. I forgot to mention him and the Rockmans and all that. But it was like, man, you get to this point and get to the fight. And when they say train hard, fight easy, that was that personified. I was like, wow. It was an exciting moment for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned there his record was 23-6 with 2 draws at the time. Yeah, he only ever, in the end of his career, he only ever, went the distance and won on points just once. 24-10 with 2 draws he ended up. His last fight took place in 2010. But yeah, prior to that fight that you had with him, his losses came to, obviously, he boxed for the world title against Vitaly Klitschko. He lost that one. He lost to a guy called, I'm not familiar with this one, but you might know, Eddie, a guy called David Bostis, something like that.
Yeah, I know David.
Yeah, him. Terrence Lewis from Philly.
Man, Terrence. Yeah, I know Terrence.
Greg Pickram. I don't know who that is.
I know. I remember. Now I'm starting to remember his record a little bit. I remember Greg Pickram's name being on there. Yeah.
So decent. Decent.
That's decent.
Decent company. And sorry, I almost missed this one. Former heavyweight world champion, Henry Akinwande.
Oh, he lost. Oh, okay. So that's not bad.
No, absolutely.
I mean, at the time, I think
by
that's.
the way, Henry Akinwande didn't stop him. He went the distance with him.
See.
Yeah.
Dang. It was probably those things that had me oh man, what am I going to do? And then once again, it's always the same, man. I'm just not looking at myself as, that guy. But the reality of it was, I was probably one of the best guys he's ever fought. With obviously when you think about Vitaly Klitschko and Henry Akinwande and some of the other champions, but it's like, it's a different matchup for him. You know what I'm saying? Skill wise, it's just he's not able to match. Even at his best, he wouldn't have had a shot because of the speed and just different things. Styles make fights, and heavyweights will struggle with certain styles if they're not boxers. Like if you look at Vitaly, Vitaly would probably have a little more success with a boxer who's smaller than him because of the range and him understanding how to use it. Same thing with Vladimir, obviously. But other guys would struggle. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's, at the end of the day, what you see in the heavyweight division, when you see a small guy like myself have success. But anyway, so I guess next time we'll get into a little further into the career.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the fourth episode there. Obviously, once again, there's been a lot of build up. We've spent a long time speaking about lots of the sparring, the training camps and stuff like that, the early fights. But again, it just gets juicier and juicier. So yeah, we end it there in June 2006. That fight against Ed Mahone. So after that, obviously, things, like I say, get pretty juicy. So what are we going to be speaking about next time, Eddie? Whether it's next week or the week after?
If we're talking about, if I'm not mistaken, I think, was that when I was getting the audition with Mr. Dan Goosen? And who was the next fight after that? Was that
next fight after Ed Mahone was Dominic Jenkins, and then
Yep,
after that was Derek Rossi.
Yep, that's this. So yeah.
Okay.
And Dominic Jenkins is going to be a very interesting story that goes into that, because that was a very important fight. Very important fight. One of the most important fights of my career because of where it put me. You know what I'm saying? And as much as you would think, well, who's this guy? And he's a spoiler. Like, he knocked out a few undefeated guys. So he was the kind of guy that if you're not good, he'll let you know you're not good. You know what I'm saying? Like, so when they put me in there with him, they was like, yeah, we're going to put him in there with this guy. He's going to be a tough guy. They didn't say this to me, but I know that's what but if you're not real, you're going to find out in this fight. So I was like, all right, and this is the audition for Goosen. And I remember, oh man, I had some interesting sparring for this one too, but we'll go into it next week or the week after.
Absolutely. Excellent. Like I say, one or two other pieces of news that I've just remembered before we welcome our first guest, our sole guest, I should say. Bob Arum has come out this week and said that the rumoured date, I don't think it's even rumoured, I think it's pretty solid. The date for Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder 3 will be the 19th of December. I think they've put the money up for a stadium. It's an outdoor stadium, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in Vegas. Can't remember the name of it, so I apologise for that. And there's a fight that's been ordered by the WBC. I think it's for the interim WBC lightweight world title. Luke Campbell, who was supposed to get a shot against, who was he supposed to get a shot against? Completely slipped me. Short guy, I think he lost to Robert Easter, Javier Fortuna. He's pulled out of the fight, so in steps Ryan Garcia, which will be very, very interesting should that fight happen. Ryan Garcia's already tweeted about it, saying that he's excited to take on, I think, his first southpaw in Luke Campbell. So if that fight happens, that'll be brilliant, and the winner gets to fight, I think, Devin Haney. But again, not quite sure that fight's going to end up happening because I can't see Ryan Garcia being the B-side or anything like that, and, Anyway, we shall wait and see. That's the news, and that's everything. So, Eddie, just before I welcome our sole guest on this week's podcast, I just want to thank you once again for taking me down memory lane and revisiting these facts, these unknown facts. And like I say, I cannot wait for the next time. It's going to just get juicier and juicier, and much more interesting, of course, as time goes on.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. I'm happy to be able to do it. It's fun. It makes me remember things that you don't think of on a daily basis. So it's really cool, man. I enjoy this.
Absolutely. Thanks, Eddie, once again. Like I say, for everyone that's listening during the lockdown, during the uneventful weeks of boxing, it's been a bliss, really. It's been a blessing having Eddie here telling these stories. I hope you've been interested during all the storytelling. I really thank Eddie once again for doing that. I don't know what we would have done without him. So thanks, Eddie. Right, it's now time to welcome our sole guest on this week's podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former IBF Super-Featherweight world champion. It is, of course, Mr. Carlos Hernandez. Carlos, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you so very much for having me here with you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure of mine, Carlos. So I want to start from the very beginning. What was your upbringing like as a child, as a kid, Carlos?
It was tough. I mean, I grew up in a bad area of Los Angeles, and so I mean, it was tough with a hard father. It was tough. It was about fighting. As a little kid, getting picked on or whatnot, or just being in the street, playing in the street. Kids, we play in the street. And so back in my day, and so that's, there's always problems, especially where I grew up. So then, we moved out of that area to a better area, but then, gangs just catch up to you. And, I just hanging around those kind of people. And it was about just fighting all the time. I grew up fighting in the street a lot. I mean, I wouldn't say I was a professional street fighter, but I did it a lot. I like to look for fights. I like to start fights. I like to fight. It was something I like to do, even because I'm short, compared to like many other guys, and they see me and they think, oh man, this little guy, So, even when I travel to El Salvador, where I'm from, or where my parents are from, I would beat up the kids over there, just because it was fun. It was something fun to do. I was bored, I guess. I don't know. I just was born with wanting to punch kids or people.
Sound like a delightful child.
Yeah. It was a hard upbringing. My father was very tough on me. So, I mean, I think I just, being married to a psychologist for many years, I learned, it was the way I was brought up. I was just leashing out my anger, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you talk about the street fights. What's your earliest memory of putting on a pair of gloves and, perhaps hitting a bag or perhaps doing pads or anything like that for the very first time? First, earliest boxing memory.
Okay, I'll tell you my first earliest boxing memory. My father used to take me to the Grand Olympic Auditorium, which was like the mecca of boxing on the West Coast. And I would go watch, Roberto Duran, this Indian Red Lopez. So, I mean, I would see like a lot of these great fighters, Mondo Ramos. And my father used to take me to the gym and watch them train. But I hated it. I hated boxing. I didn't like it. I thought it was boring. I thought these guys were bleeding all over each other and hugging each other. And I didn't like it till around 14. I was about 14 and a half years old. And, I was already a street kid and, hanging around and getting in trouble a lot, getting kicked out of school. And so my dad took me and two other guys, that were gang members, but I wasn't, but they were my buddies. And so he took us to a park not far from, down the street from where we lived. And this park was in a bad neighborhood, but in that park they had boxing. And so it was like $10 a month. And so that was the first day. I go in there, I see these, my dad said, I'm going to take you guys to box. I was like, all right, let's go. And my buddies went too. They wanted to check it out. They were fighters too. But so we laced up the gloves that same day. And we sparred. I sparred with one of my friends who was, he was considered a good street fighter. He's a bigger guy. But I popped him very good in the nose and made him bleed. He didn't want to spar anymore. And so I liked that. I was like, dude, and they were like, dude, Carlos, man, he's a good fighter. He's a really good. And I kind of like that, the adulation from my peers, Yeah. And so it was cool. And I think that was addicting. I wanted more. And so I stuck with it. And they never came back. My buddies never came back. And I stuck with it, 15 years old came and I started, my amateur fights. Then, that's how it began.
And you mentioned the amateur game there. What was your kind of highlight moment in the amateurs, Carlos?
Wow. Well, one of my highlights, one of the best ones, two of my favorite ones, I fought for the California title and as an amateur. And I thought I beat this guy. I dropped him twice in the fight. It was 3 rounds, but it was a good fight. It was really good. He was quick, African American guy, Mark Lewis. Good. He was a national champion. I had only 12 fights, 12 amateur fights, and he had hundreds. And I was so proud, and I knew I beat him, but they gave it to him. And so even though they gave it to him, I knew I did a heck of a job of beating that guy, which I thought I did, and everyone did too. It was like, I think it was fight of the night. And this is where De La Hoya was on that card. I mean, it's an amateur show, but I mean, Shane Mosley. I mean, so I was fighting with great guys from California at my time.
Yeah,
I didn't fight them, but they were on the same card. No,
that's cool, man. That's really cool. Embarking on the pro journey, though, you turned pro on January 23rd, 1992 in California against another guy making his debut that night, Victor Martinez. The fight, obviously, is scheduled for 4 rounds. It ends in a draw, though. Do you remember much about your first fight there, Carlos?
I do. I surely do. I looked at the guy. The thing was, I was like in between. I stopped my amateur career at about 1990, because I tried to make the U.S. team to go to the Goodwill Games, and I thought I got robbed, so I got disgusted with boxing, and so I stopped. I didn't stop training. I just stopped the fighting and amateurs and all that. I stopped the amateur stuff, so I wasn't really taking it like serious. I was going to college, so I was on the track team for college, and so I was in really good shape. And then I see these guys making it to the Olympics. The guys I used to train with or spar with, like De La Hoya and Shane, Shane was the alternate, but then Vernon Forrest, and Pepe Riley, and they made the team. I'm like, damn. So I kind of, you know what? I'm just going to turn pro. And like 2.5, 3 weeks later, I turned pro. And so since me being on the track team, I definitely thought I was in great shape. And I looked at the guy, and I'm like, oh man, I want to just destroy this guy. I just looked at him and I said, "Oh man, I'm gonna destroy this guy." And so I shot my wad the first 2 rounds, and that guy could take a punch. And after that, I was just surviving, and he came back and won the last 2 rounds. And yeah, it definitely was a draw. and plus, it didn't help having a girlfriend saying, "Get down, let's just leave, let's go." That didn't help, So.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, let's fast forward to September 30th, 1995. By this point, you're 21-0 with that one draw, of course, on your debut. You box a guy by the name of Aaron Zarate. Now, Zarate at the time had around about the same amount of experience as yourself. However, you'd lose your O that night by a split decision over 10 rounds in Nevada. What do you remember about that night there, Carlos?
I knew I was going to be in a really dogfight. I mean, I was fighting a guy that was trained by Nacho Bernstein, and but I was still confident. I was very confident. More than anything, I think that what killed me was just trying to make the weight. It was. I thought I had it, but it was just too much for me, and I felt like I didn't recover in my weight, and so the fight was a good fight. The guy was aggressive. He did surprise me. I thought I was again going to work him, since he's a tall guy. I was going to work him in the body and try to get him out, which I almost did in the last round, but at the end I didn't. And so I at least thought it could have been a draw, possibly, just like some other fights, but it is what it is, and it was. I took it hard. I did. In fact, I was like sitting on one of the stairs and one of the steps in the casino, and Maromero Paez, I don't know if you remember him, the former champ, Jorge Maromero Paez, he comes up, he loses that night, and he gives me a beer. He says, "Oh man, get the fuck up," It's like, come on, this happens all the time, man. Just drink up and come back another day. I was like, all right. And so I had a few beers with them, and we had a good time. It was nice.
And I've said this to loads of guys over the years, but an early loss like that, while you're still supposed to be on the rise as a fighter, it can dishearten a lot of guys. It can ruin their careers. Some guys never recover. Did that loss, though, turn you into a better fighter, would you say, looking back now?
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, I knew I had to make a change with the team that I was working with at that time, and so I that's exactly what I did, and I made the change and got back on the on the winning streak.
Yeah, for sure, and that winning streak, like I say, returned 10 months later. You got a win over Isagani Puma, and then 6 months later you were back again. We're now up to January of 1997. You boxed the former WBC featherweight world champion Gregorio Vargas. You beat him on a majority decision over 10 rounds. Did you prove something to yourself perhaps that night? Because like I say, it wasn't too long after the first loss, and here you are beating a guy that that was a world champion in the past.
Yeah, definitely. It was a big night for me, but it was a especially big night because that night, before the fight, I found out that the trainer who made me, the guy who really made me, who showed me the boxing, showed me how to fight, was Jackie McCoy, the late great Jackie McCoy, and he died that day. So it was a very emotional win because I left him because he was sick. He had cancer. So when I left him, I went with another team, and so when I lost against Zarate, I left that team, and I went back to training. I got another trainer and all that, but I find out that he passed away. Jackie passed away that morning of the fight, and I didn't even know. And I'm getting ready to put on the gloves, and so. It was a very emotional. I dedicated that fight to him, obviously to my country too. But it was a special moment for me to win. But he was in my mind, in my heart. When I won.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that Jorge Paez was also on that card. I'm guessing there wasn't too many beers after that one. You both got wins.
Yeah, well, yeah, he was a crazy character. That was the only time I ever did that with him. But yeah, the guy. I mean, I trained with the guy for many years, and the guy is just a character.
Yeah, we had Tony Lopez on last week's show. He knows all about.
That's right.
Jorge Paez.
That's right. Yes, I mean, I used to study that fight. I used to watch that Tony Lopez and Mauro Paez fight, and I loved it. How both fighters just give it their all, and further down the line, I was Tony Lopez's sparring partner.
Oh, okay.
And I sparred him for the Chavez fight.
Oh, okay.
And when we all went to Monterrey, Mexico, when they fought Chavez, that's where I met my wife, my ex-wife. I just got recently divorced, but we're on good terms. But yeah, we just recently got divorced after 25 years. And but I met my wife on that trip.
Wow, that's amazing.
And it was a good trip. It was it was really good. But people were thinking that Tony Lopez was going to beat Chavez up, and so when I would come down the ring, after doing the public training, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna destroy Chavez." I'm like, "No, I'm not the one fighting Chavez. It's the other guy. It's Tony Lopez. I'm not Tony Lopez." So that was kind of cool. That was kind of cool on, how I felt really good. And, I understood that he was trying to make weight and, he's feeling a little weak, but he's just moving around. But I felt really good training and, meeting my future wife, and it was really good.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like I say, I'm sorry to hear the news that's come to an end. I'm happy though that you're on good terms. Yeah, it was interesting having Tony Lopez on because he went into great detail about the Chavez fight. So if anyone's listening to me now and you haven't listened to that interview, you should do, because he revealed some things that apparently he's never revealed in any other interview. So that could be interesting if you haven't heard it. Back onto yourself, though.
Yeah, I thought that you were going to interview him. Yeah, but I haven't listened to it. No.
Yeah, he goes into great detail last week's show, and he spent quite a while going into detail. And like I said, there was one thing on there that he said, "I've never said this before, but I'm going to say it now." Blah blah blah. So yeah, check it out.
Wow, I will.
Okay, my friend. So back onto your career. After this win here against Vargas, you put together 2 consecutive knockout wins before getting your first attempt at a world title, the WBC Super-Featherweight world title that at the time was held by the late Genaro Hernandez. I believe you boxed on a few of his undercards, if I'm not mistaken, on the come up. He was a personal friend of yours, and yeah, obviously it was an unfortunate night for you. Looking back, it wasn't to be your night. A wide unanimous decision loss over 12. Tell us about it, and obviously your friendship with this guy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was basically he was my mentor, and but I was like his chief sparring when he was up and coming, and like 2 weeks or maybe a little bit more, maybe 3 weeks to a month before he passed, he sent me a text, and I saved the text, and he says something in the words like, "If you helped me out a lot, because of you helped me, and I was champion because you helped me with sparring," and like he included me with his success, and that was very classy of him. And he was just a great guy. I mean, we would go out together with the wives and go out to dinner together. We'd go to soccer games, and we'd play together. We're fighters, but we'd go to the beach or we'd go to the lake and jet ski together. We'd do family outings together, and it was great to be part of that. And like I said, he was my mentor growing up. And I mean, in boxing as a young guy, and that's why I won a lot of my fights as well, is because sparring people like him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I got the shot at the title. The new managers that I had, they wanted me to get a title shot. They thought I was ready. And but it was kind of like a bittersweet kind of deal, I mean, it's great. I'm fighting for a world title, but it's against a buddy of mine. I didn't care though, and neither did he. This was business, and this was more about if he had to lose to anybody, how beautiful it would be that he would lose to me. He would tell me, and I would thank him, But and for that fight, it was a good win for him. I mean, he did what he had to do. I was trying to always be the aggressor, trying to be on top of him, but he used his range, and he knew exactly how I fight. I didn't change my style just for the reason because I felt confident that I could get to him, but at the end I never did. I never got close.
Yeah. Like I say, a bump in the road. But that again, that loss kind of gave you something to go on and up your game once again. You go on this undefeated run. You were unbeaten for 3.5 years. You put together eight fights in a row, winning them all, before obviously getting your second crack at a world title. By this time, Hernandez had lost the world title to Floyd Mayweather. That's when you got the shot. May 26th, 2001 in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Floyd's backyard. And obviously, it's an interesting one. You're credited as the first man to knock Floyd Mayweather down. Yeah, just talk to me about that from your point of view. I watched it back the other day once again. He kind of takes a knee because he hurt himself or something, but I'm not taking that away from you, man. Yeah. You're the guy that put him down.
Well, yes. I mean, technically I did, but I didn't physically put him down. He took the knee, and I tried to look at the fight and watch it again over and over, and it looked like he almost turned his back and took the knee. And I was like, oh, I really wanted to put him down on my own, but he took the knee. He took the knee because he hurt his hand, and not because I punched him or anything. And so I guess he had pain in his hand so much that he took the knee, and he needed to take that knee to get a little bit of a recovery to. Just to move, and that's basically what he did. I think in that fight I was probably in the best shape I've ever been in any fight. Even when I fought for the world title, I was in great shape as well. But that fight, I was 128 pounds for that fight, and the lightest I've ever been. And it was just it was a good feeling. Even though I lost, it was a great fight for me. I mean, in my country, it's like I won. Yeah. And so, and a lot of people, like Jose Luis Castillo once told me, I studied your fight to fight Mayweather and to prepare. Exactly. He's like, I think you wrote the way on how to beat him. And I was like, thank you. I thought you won. I told him the first fight. And so it was a good fight. It was a really good fight for me, even though again I lost, but I didn't get beat up. These fights that I lost, and I didn't get beat up or whipped. It was just they beat me. But I was on them, and I was on them the whole time. Even I had a knot in my head, I was still going forward. But yeah, he was just a talented fighter with exceptional. Movement. I mean, it's just very, very smooth. And I say that before I met Mayweather, I thought Shane Mosley was my favorite fighter, Shane. I grew up sparring him. Not grew up, but 17, 18 years old, we were sparring, and then we were sparring as adults and against Genaro, and I'd get in with Shane, and I mean, I thought Shane was just the greatest fighter. Man, he was just so fast and punch hard, and he just a good fighter all around. And then when I met Floyd Mayweather, I had to say Floyd Mayweather was just at another level, Shane, he gets hit a little bit too much, and Mayweather doesn't. He doesn't really get hit. I mean, when I fought Mayweather, I made his nose bleed. I made his mouth bleed. He even had a small nick on under his eye. And I thought, damn, at least I made him bleed. That was great. And I didn't make him bleed because of a headbutt or anything. It was because of punches. And so I was proud of that. But by far, I thought Mayweather was just at another level, and he is a tremendous fighter.
Yeah, you cut him. It was an impressive performance. Just being credited though as the first man to put him down is a brilliant fate. If ever YouTube crashes and we lose all the footage, that's it. You're in the history books. No one knows what exactly happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right about Shane Mosley as well. Just on the come up, a fighter that had it all really. Just speed, power, good chin, strength. Unbelievable. The next 13 months after this fight, you put together a string of 4 wins before then getting your third shot at a world title. February the 1st, 2003, for the vacant IBF Featherweight world title against David Santos at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. Sitting there ringside, we see Alexis Arguello, Roberto Duran, the president of El Salvador, all ringside supporting you that night. The fight ends in a technical decision after 8 rounds, perhaps not the way you wanted it to end, but tell us about the night your world title ambitions came to fruition there.
No, I just felt that this night was going to be my night. I mean, not taking anything away from David Santos. He was a great technician, great boxer. I just felt that my tenacity, me being on him, being aggressive, would slow him down, and I think that's what really happened. I mean, that cut that he received, which was a headbutt, wasn't really. I mean, it was. I don't know. And not to put him down or anything. I mean, there's cuts, and just fighters still fight, and I felt that they took the back way out and try to see if they could pull it off through the cards, and luckily it didn't. I was happy that I was winning the rounds, and my aggressiveness, I guess, proved that it was better than his technique, and thank God that I became champion of the world for the first time for El Salvador.
Yeah, the first world champion from El Salvador. What did that mean to you personally, and obviously the people? Because you say you boxed Floyd Mayweather, it was like you won. They thought you was amazing, but to win a world title, to put that nation on the map in a sport like boxing, what did they receive that like? It must have been amazing. It
was. Believe me, I mean the country. It's a poor country, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's a third world country with a lot of bad history in the past, and to this day, I mean, it's starting to get better, but with the gangs and just the war that we had, and then we just had a cyclone, which is like a hurricane, about a month ago. So I mean, it's been very bad. The country never gets to recuperate, and so when I fought, it was like everyone was on watching TV. The lowest crime rate of the year was that day. It was amazing. It was they named an arena after me there. The president did, and so it's a very big deal. I have my own street. I have my park. It's really good. I've been blessed with the respect and love my people have given me, because I think they've seen that I've done all I can to promote our country in a better and positive way, to stay away from gangs and drugs, and try to just walk the right path and be good.
No, good for you, my friend. That's amazing stuff. February the 1st, 2003, obviously was the date. Is that the happiest night of your life? If it's not, what's better than that?
No, it was yes, it was one of the best nights of my life. We didn't sleep My wife and I, we didn't sleep at that time. We had the president over in with Secret Service, and it was amazing. I mean, I had many people up. Bob Arum got me the presidential suite at the Mandalay Bay, which is like an apartment at the top floor. You know, I mean, it was phenomenal. Then I had an interview at 6 a.m. in Miami. We're in Vegas, but the show in Miami is early. It's 9 a.m. So I had to wake up at 6 a.m. But I didn't even sleep. So it was just amazing. It was just an amazing night. Something I'll never forget. You know, it was beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And after that fight, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had a non-title bout against Moises Pedrosa. You were both down before you stopped him in the second round. That's when you moved on to defend your title for the first time. The bout takes place at the Staples Center in LA. You box the former IBF Super-Featherweight world champion Steve Forbes. He wanted his belt back, quite frankly, a belt he lost on the scales before a planned defense. Steve's been on the show before, good guy, but he couldn't beat you that night. It was, however, another technical decision due to a head clash, and the fight stopped in the 10th round. What do you recall of that night? Steve Forbes, probably underrated, really, when you look back, but a good fighter and a good win for you.
Absolutely underrated. I mean, the guy, you know, I didn't think he had that kind of a pop. His record didn't show that he had that knockout power. I proved in the business that I was just like, I had a strong chin, and I wasn't going to go down. And that was like probably the first time that I staggered in that fight. And I think it was the 4th round where he threw an uppercut, and I saw white lights, and I felt my knees buckle a bit, and I knew I was in a dogfight. I mean, I was like, wow, this guy really does punch. Where is it? Why doesn't he have more knockouts? You know? And so anyway, I had to do what I had to do, stay on him. I really trained hard for that fight. I wanted to keep my title, obviously, and my wife at that time and I trained. I used to train in wild card, and we trained a lot on throwing punches. So my wife, what she would do is she would count my punches, as many punches as I could throw in the round. And when I would spar, you know, you're throwing only 40 punches. Come on, bring it up, you know. So in that fight, it was about output. I had to throw a lot of punches, and that's how I beat him, is just being busier.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, that's a brilliant win looking back. The fight after that was where you attempted to unify your title with the then WBC champion Erik Morales. The fight takes place at the MGM Grand. You tried your best that night, of course, but you came up short over 12 rounds, unanimous. What do you remember of that one there, Carlos?
Yes, I just, you know, he knew my style. He knew I was just going to try to bully him, because I felt I was going to be stronger than him, and that's what I did. I felt it as well. I didn't feel his punch at all. I didn't feel, maybe it was because he was weaker or whatnot, I don't know. But I felt like I could just walk through him. And when we were fighting, that's what I was trying to do, is walk through him. But he actually stayed there with me every few times, but then he'd box me. He'd move out, he'd run away and use that jab. So it was a good technical win for him. I mean, he did what he had to do. It's not just a way. It's not just a fight. These guys that beat me use their brains. They either study me or they're just smart. And he has a really high ring IQ. You know, he was able to let me come in and just catch me with that jab, and you know, or throw a few combinations to catch me and score points. And that's what happened. I had more of that. I didn't care. I just want to fight. I want to get you out of your rhythm, smother you, and fight. And maybe I should have boxed a little bit more, but it was just that thing inside me that I've always had, even as a kid. It's just like I just want to just go at you like a tank, and it proved that I couldn't win them all. I mean, that way, and I should have boxed a little bit more. It would have been better. But at the end of the day, I'm glad I fought these legends, and I lost to these legends. But I was in there with them, and they couldn't do anything to me.
Yeah,
they couldn't do anything.
Yeah, no shame in losing to a guy like Erik Morales, and he made a lot of adjustments in that fight as well during the fight. Almost a lost art. You don't even really see people making adjustments during a fight much anymore. After that, I think 5 months later, you had your next fight. You was involved in 3 back-to-back split decisions. You won the first one against former 3-time world title challenger Juan Carlos Ramirez, but then after that came the loss to former WBC Super-Featherweight world champion Jesus Chavez, and then a very controversial loss to Bobby Pacquiao followed that one. Do you want to give me any words on any of those fights?
Yeah, that year was my worst year in boxing, and I felt when I fought Chavez, I was very disappointed because there was a knockdown, a flash knockdown in the last round where they didn't count, and because his glove touched the canvas, and but he just touched it, but then got back up. It's boxing, and I thought it could have counted, but it didn't, and it was what it was. And so we wanted to get the rematch. It was going to be a great, possibly trilogy. I knew I could knock him out. I felt in the second fight. I was so sure of it. And we were going to get a very good payday. And he decides to fight with what's his name, Levander Johnson, I believe.
Yeah.
And he wins the title. But he kills the guy. But I think we could have the best business deal. I think would have been making more money. He won a title, which is great, but I think the money right there was good for us at that weight, fighting with because he signed with Golden Boy to fight Levander Johnson, and we were Top Rank, and he left Top Rank, and I thought that was just a very bad business move on his part, and because again, we're supposed to make $500,000 in that fight, and it's not a title fight. And it would have been a great, possibly trilogy, or we could make more money. But at that time, it's about making money, and it was great that he won a title, but I don't think he made the money that he could have made with Top Rank.
Yeah, interesting, and yeah, like I say, the controversial Bobby Pacquiao loss. I'm sure you got something to say about that one.
Yeah, it was Ringside magazine, Ring magazine. It was robbery of the year, and I remember that clearly. And I was disappointed. That's when I kind of like, kind of like what I did when in the amateurs, when I kind of gave up with the amateurs. I just it was not there anymore. The pleasure of training and going through that on my body day in and day out every day. I was feeling it. I was already feeling it. And so I was disappointed. And so when 2006 came, I believe, or was it 2007? I don't remember, but I fight Kevin Kelly. And I thought because of me fighting Bobby Pacquiao, I still got it, but I was already kind of like frustrated. And so I fought Kevin Kelly thinking for sure I'll destroy this guy. He's just an older guy. I'll beat him. And to my surprise, he dropped me in the 4th round, I believe. I don't know what round, and won the fight. And that's when I knew I was done. And so I retired for like a year and a half or two, and then I came back for another 2 fights, I believe, and that was it. I felt that my last fight was, I think, a majority decision, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, your very last fight, a unanimous decision loss over 10 to Vicente Escobedo. The fight before was the first comeback fight, if you will, was a split decision win over 10 rounds against Hector Alatorre.
Okay, yeah. That fight I felt just out of tune, just trying to get back into it. But then I had a closed eye, and so it was pretty tough. The guy was an aggressive fighter. He did what he had to do. He's fighting a former champion. He wanted to win. He didn't. But then I fight Vicente Escobedo in my next fight, and that I got dropped in the first round, second round. Now I'm starting to get dropped, and so I felt like, you know what, maybe this is not supposed to happen. So I should maybe call it a career, and that's what I did. And it was tough. It was tough because you go through a depression. I mean, it was something I only knew what to do was to fight, and that's it. And for me to stop, and it was tough. I had to stop even the training because I would get that itch of wanting to go train to fight again. So I even stopped training.
Just to get the timeline right, like I say, after the Bobby Pacquiao fight, the 4 fights that followed, obviously a win over Sean Plessis, then that loss to Kevin Kelly, a guy that we will probably be speaking to within the next couple of weeks. Then you're out the ring for 2 years, come back, get the win against Hector Alatorre, and then finally finishing on that unanimous decision loss to Vicente Escobedo on an Edwin Valero undercard, by the way. So I want to ask you this one. I probably should have asked you this at the very beginning, Carlos. Where did the nickname El Famoso originate from?
Well, it's actually Famoso, not El Famoso. It was just famous because I'll tell you why. Because when I would go to El Salvador as a kid, I would beat up all the kids, and so in the street right there in the neighborhood, so they would all go crying to my grandpa who was taking care of me, and my grandpa said, "Damn, this freaking kid is famous. Everyone's always complaining about him." So then he said, "I'm gonna call you famous. So Famoso. I'm gonna be Famoso. So Famoso. So that's how it started. And ever since I was a kid, it was my dad would call me Famoso. Hey, Famoso, vení. Come here, Famoso, famous. And so when I became at 16 years old, I had some new headgear, Cleto Reyes, and cup and everything, and I put El Famoso on my headgear. But I don't know if you know who Manny Robles is.
Oh, of course.
He was the one that made Ruiz, right? Well, his father was one of my trainers back when I was young, and he told me, why El Famoso? I was like, I don't know. That's what my dad calls me, Famoso. He's like, yeah, famous. You're not the famous, you're famous. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. So I took the El Famoso out and just put Famoso, and that's how it was. And so it was because I was thinking, should I be Carlos Hercules Hernandez? Because I heard that in a wrestling match from a guy named Hercules Hernandez. I was like, that sounds kind of cool. I like that. But nah, Hercules sounds too WrestleMania type thing. So I didn't like that. And then so I was thinking about nicknames like Pitbull. That's kind of cool. But then my dad said, well, why don't you go with famous? That's your name. I was like, oh yeah, all right. So that's how I got the name famous, Famoso.
Yeah, because a lot of people, it's always been the way where the nickname comes in between, in the middle of the first and last name. Carlos Famoso Hernandez. But it could have been, El Famoso Carlos Hernandez. That would have been cool, right? Maybe.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought. But with Manny Robles is that it made sense to me. Yeah. He's like, but you're not the famous. Yeah. You are famous. And I'm like, you know what? But the way you put it, the way you worded it, I loved it. And I said, you know what? That's it. I'm Famoso.
And coming down to the last few questions here, Carlos, I want to ask you this. Looking back over your career, who would you say was the hardest puncher you faced?
Okay, the hardest puncher is kind of an easy one. Is this guy from Colombia named Douglas Villarreal. I heard he passed away already from hepatitis, but he was. I knocked him out, I think, in the first round, in fact. But and I fought him. I believe it was here in Austin, Texas. But that guy punched me on top of the head, and I just saw lights. And I didn't buckle in that fight. I wasn't knocked down, but I just felt his punch. I felt a heavy hand, and I knew how to get him out of there. And I think I only had that one loss, so he was one of the guys that that had a knockout to get that title shot.
Yeah, he only ever went the distance. He only ever won on points just once, and he only ever lost on points just once. He had 40 fights, and he went the distance 3 times. So he either knocked you out or got knocked out himself. But yeah, he passed away 5 years after your fight. Who was the best all-round fighter you boxed?
Oh, Floyd Mayweather, definitely.
Yeah, I thought you might say that. Have you got any regrets looking back over everything? If you could go back and change something?
Yes, leaving my trainers. I wasn't really. Sometimes I wasn't as professional, or I was just a kid. I didn't know how to. I wasn't mature on how to be more of a businessman and tell them, you know what, I don't think things work this way. I just left. And I think that was that's one thing I truly regret doing with Bill Slayton, who was Ken Norton's trainer and Layman Brewster's trainer, and he was my trainer, but I left him for Emmanuel Stewart, and I didn't have the courtesy to even call him, and that sticks to me, that bothers me, but I just hope and pray, that, I was just a dumb kid, I didn't know how to do it. And I mean, I wasn't a kid either. I was a young adult, but, I didn't have, I guess, didn't want to hurt his feelings. And I wasn't, but at the same time, I wasn't professional enough to tell him, I'm sorry, I'm going to go this way. I did it cowardly. And that's one of the things, if not the most, the biggest thing I regret in boxing.
Yeah, that's pretty sad, to be honest. When you trained with Emmanuel Stewart, what was that like? Because again, I've spoke to quite a few people, it seems, during this lockdown that have trained under him at some point, or met him at some point, and just everyone speaks so highly of him. What was your experiences like with him?
He's a great guy. I mean, I had a great time with him. I was training. It was Lennox Lewis, then there was me, then it was De La Hoya. So I was right in between. So I kind of felt that, he kind of rushed me, and like I would hit the bag and, just hit the bag, and, that was it. I didn't feel that intimacy that, a trainer like I had with Amilcar Brusa, who was Carlos Monzon's trainer, who I had with him. He was on me, like, watching me hit the bag and seeing my defects and telling me, dude, you're dropping your arm. You do this, move the head, move this. So I felt a little neglected a bit with Emmanuel, but he was a great guy. I mean, I had a lot of fun with him. Fun because he was a fun person. He was very joyful and very, very kind. I mean, he got me a hotel room in at Caesar's Palace when De La Hoya fought Macho Camacho, and he got me a room, and I thought that was very, very great nice of him. And he was a good guy. He would tell me some stories. I mean, he was, Emmanuel Stewart. And so he was a good guy.
Yeah.
I really admired him, and I just wish I had a little bit more time with him instead of like a few months and being rushed, and him not really knowing my style and knowing what worked for me and or whatnot, and plus he was busy with the other fighters. You know, he had, Lennox Lewis and the heavyweight champion, and then he had Oscar, my God, the big money cow. So, you know, I just felt that, you know, I didn't fit that. And then he had Welcome and Sita as well. So it was he had a lot of fighters.
And you know, you boxed some brilliant names throughout your career. So you had many big fights. But was there anyone that you wanted to fight but didn't get the chance to fight? And if so, who are they?
Oh, that was a great question, man. You know, and not many people have asked me that, but that's a great question. Yeah, and I wanted to fight Arturo Gatti. That was one. Acelino Freitas was another guy, and Corrals.
Wow. So hard fights there. Acelino Freitas, a tough.
Yeah. They would have been hard fights. They would have been hard fights. I was actually offered to fight Jose Luis Castillo. I turned that down because they gave me like 2 weeks for that fight, and they were only giving me $5,000. I was like, no, thank you. I'm not going to take that fight.
I want to ask you this. Obviously, again, you know, you found it pretty difficult to walk away from boxing. You had to literally stop going to the gym almost to not miss it. What has kept you busy in that time? What gets you out of bed? What are you up to these days?
Well, you know what? I mean, before this COVID thing, I'm a boxing promoter. I promote boxing here in San Antonio where I live, but I was making the move to LA and opening a gym in Los Angeles. And this definitely hit hard. So the people that I have investors that are with me, and so right now they're kind of like, we don't think right now is the best time, and it isn't. It isn't right now. The gyms are practically empty. I mean, they're starting to open up in LA, but here in Texas, they're starting to close them down again because the rate went up. They jumped up. So it's tough. But other than that, I mean, my main thing that I do is I'm with my children. My daughter, she's homeschooled, and she's 14 years old, but she's on the United States acrobatic gymnastics team. And in fact, the United Kingdom, the UK has the best acro gymnastics in the world. And but she placed number 6 in the World Championships in Belgium, and so, you know, I'm with her all the time. I take her to the gym. I'm there. She's doing homework. I'm there. I feed her. My son as well, you know. But my son, he doesn't do homeschool. He does soccer. He does a lot of soccer, and he doesn't do it competitively. I mean, recreationally. He does it competitively, and so I put in a lot of time to my children.
Oh, excellent, man. So two very sporty children. Well, I say children, young. Yeah, I think you didn't say how old your son was, but you know, yeah, that's great, man.
Yeah, he's 16. He's 16 years old. Just voted the best player in his position in South Texas out of the region. Wow. So I mean, that's a good thing, you know, for soccer, because soccer is so popular. You know, football. I don't know. You a soccer fan or not?
Football, yeah.
Yeah, we say football. Yeah, and so that's that's my favorite sport, actually.
Really?
I love soccer, and yes.
Wow. What
I love
position
it.
does your son play?
Midfield.
Okay.
Attacking mid, or right front.
Okay.
Attack. What do you call it? The front. What do you call it?
What, like a striker?
The guy the striker. There you go, striker. Yeah.
Okay.
The striker.
Oh, that's interesting, man. That's obviously over here that's the number one sport. That's why they're selling out stadiums before, not during COVID, of course, but they sell out stadiums every single weekend, 70,000 every single weekend. It's like a religion over here.
Yeah. my son was actually called to go to West Ham.
Oh wow!
To go try out, but at the end we couldn't go because it was pricey, and so at the end, but it was part of like a U.S. thing that West Ham came, and they would go to different cities in the United States. They look at some of the kids, and then they send you to like another one spot, which is like in Alabama, and then from there they choose the team to go to West Ham. And so I was like, if they really wanted you, son, they'd pay your way. But I'm like, this is just a business. But it was good. My kid has a certificate there where, he's called up for West Ham. So it was nice. That was when he was young. And he's 16 now, but this was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
No, that's so cool, man. That's really interesting because, West Ham obviously is it's a London-based football team, and real history. A lot of people in my family support that team, for example. That's so cool. That's only probably within an hour of my house. But everyone in London, we all speak. Everyone in London speaks a bit we don't even pronounce the H because it's too long. We just call it West Ham, and that's what we call them.
West Ham. Okay, West Ham. All right, that's cool. Nice.
I've been saying it for so many years that we don't even pronounce the H because it's too long. We're too lazy for that. I want to put you on the spot a tiny bit, Carlos. Here, I like to ask this to everyone that we speak to from overseas. Favorite UK fighter, any era. It can be a guy that retired 1,000 years ago, any era. Favorite UK fighter?
Jeez. I would probably have to say the guy that fought Gerald McClellan.
Nigel Benn,
yes.
Yeah, good.
He was a monster.
Yeah.
He was a monster, and I love that style. That was my style, trying to go in there. I didn't have that power that he did, but I just like that aggressive style and say goodnight. There's probably more fighters that I used to really like. Ricky Hatton. Yeah. He wasn't my favorite, but I really liked his style because he was just aggressive. That was another guy I wanted to fight as well. And Nassim Ahmed, I wanted to fight him. I really wanted to fight him because we were around the same weight division. So, but he was just very, very flamboyant kind of fighter. I just really wanted to fight him. But he was, it just never happened. He never moved up. Although he moved up after when he retired.
Yeah. For sure. A few weight classes.
Yeah, exactly.
And just finally, Carlos, if you've got any closing words just to our listeners before we let you go. Obviously, you don't speak to the UK media too often at all. Obviously, a load of guys over here know who you are and have supported you throughout your career, and I'm sure wish you the best with everything you're doing outside of the ring now. What's your message to your supporters this side of the pond?
Well, I really do appreciate the love, because I'm going to tell you, my kid, he has a British or an English trainer, soccer coach, and he actually used to box, but amateur, and so he sees me and he's like, famoso? I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, and he hugs me. He's like, I'm a big fan of yours, and he used to watch me fight in England. Now he's over here in Texas.
Wow. And
it's a good feeling. So I have totally appreciate the respect and the love that he's shown me, and I'm sure others from England have as well. And so I think it's a beautiful country. I've been there. I've been to London. It's a great place, and I would love to be there again. It's a very, very beautiful city. I love it, and I hope to be back there soon one day. One thing I want to do, I didn't get a chance to, is go to a boxing gym, and I didn't go. I just went to pubs.
Oh, pubs.
I would go to pubs. Yeah, I would go to the pubs.
What did you think of our pubs? Are they different to what you've got down there in Texas?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I love those dark cave-looking kind of caverns. You know, I mean taverns, but it's interesting. You know, but I liked it. It was really. I mean, I went to a pub that was like hundreds of years old. I was like, what? It was like in the 17 or 1800s. I'm like, my gosh, this is history. This is awesome. I loved it.
Was the beer good though?
You know what? I drink Belgian beer.
Okay.
I drink the Duvel. Have you heard the Duvel?
I don't think so.
Oh, you got to try that. I mean, if you're a beer drinker or not, you got to try it at least one time.
Okay.
I wasn't a beer drinker until I came to Texas. It's so damn hot here. You have to drink because everyone's drinking. So I started drinking.
I like.
It's not like I'm an habitual drinker. I'm not an alcoholic or anything like that. But I do drink. I don't drink anymore. I told my kids and my ex-wife, because we still talk. So I told her, yeah, I'm gonna stop drinking and all that. I'm gonna watch my weight. But yeah, the beer Duvel is a good beer, so I just recommend you try that.
I'm going to try that. I like the Italian beer. I don't know if you've ever tried any Italian beer.
Yeah, I have. It's something very, very light. The Duvel is very rich. I mean, that's just me though. I mean, you may not like it, but it's a hell of a beer.
All right, I'm going to try it and I'll let you know. But listen, Carlos, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you about your entire career. It really has been. Thank you so much for your time. God bless you, and I hope we can catch up again in the future, my friend.
You too, my friend. Thank you so much. And whenever I'm over there, I'll hope to meet you.
Absolutely.
Or see you, or whatever. Sounds good, brother. Thank you.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 246 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. Once again, it's always great to have Eddie with me. A massive thank you to our sole guest on this week's podcast, the former IBF Super-Featherweight World Champion, Carlos Hernandez. A big shout out, as always, to you, the listeners, for tuning in each week. The podcasts have been obviously a lot longer in terms of duration than usual, and that's because of the lack of boxing action on the TV screen, so we're trying our best to help pass the time with these lengthier pods. I hope you enjoy them. If you do get the chance, please leave us a review on iTunes. That would really mean a lot to us. Other than that, enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe. Thanks for listening, and we shall see you all again next week.